catastrophic failure of the dam at BC's Mount Polley Mine sent millions of cubic meters of silt, muck, and hard metals into a sensitive salmon spawning area.
At a packed community meeting, the company said it takes full responsibility, but it doesn't know why it happened.
Experts called Mount Polley one of the worst environmental disasters in modern Canadian history. Basically 10 million cubic meters of contaminated waste was dumped into a pristine watershed.
As of yet, no one has been held responsible for the disaster that happened at Mount Polley. But Mount Polley is just one of many active mines in British Columbia. And in the time since that tailing pond failure occurred, the operating company, Imperial Metals, has opened another mine with a similar pond design named Red Chris.
So we heard about the mining boom in Northwest British Columbia, but to really understand what was at stake, it's something you sort of got to see for yourself.
So we planned this crazy trip starting at the entrance of Red Chris, and we planned out a route that would take us into the heart of an area known as the Sacred Headwaters.
So what's the plan?
Bike in 150 kilometers on an abandoned railroad grade and single track, get down to the river, inflate our pack rafts, paddle out another 250 kilometers, get back to the trail, ride back out to our truck at the mine entrance.
Yeah, it was an ambitious plan.
I mean, you're going into here and you think, well, everything looks good now, but the weather could turn really bad, you know? And one of you could slip, but one of you could hurt yourself.
Whoa, shit.
And you're a long way from anywhere.
We're just about ready to go here. The guy who owns the lodge here just came out and stared at us pretty confused, wondering what we were doing, and then spent about 20 minutes trying to talk us out of it, saying it was a bad idea. But we're gonna go for it, even though he thinks we're crazy. He just couldn't get his head around the idea of riding our bikes in and then putting them on rafts, and how would we get the rafts in, how would we get the bikes out. Good sign. One guy who lives here says it's a really bad idea. So it's raining, still raining, but we're gonna go bike a little bit more. So we're going for the Starbucks via.
Shoot it.
Lance hasn't discovered it yet.
I'm gonna hose it. Oh,
Putting on some up.
Day 2, we're packing up camp. The bear bags are intact. We think we had a bear come near camp last night, but nothing got ripped down.
Everybody knows you're a free man.
The landscape itself is absolutely majestic. You know, I've worked for many, many years for the National Geographic as an explorer in residence. I've seen many wondrous things, but there's no place on Earth that I believe is more beautiful, more dramatic than Northwest British Columbia. If you think that in the lower 48 of the United States, the furthest you can get away from a maintained road anywhere is 20 miles, well, in this northwest quadrant of British Columbia, the size of the entire state of Oregon, there's one road.
Down into this open meadow and we started being able to hear the river.
It just felt so nice to hit a river and know that we were hitting the next stage of our journey. So next, we're gonna break down our bikes, inflate the rafts, put the bikes on the rafts, and spend about 260 kilometers on the river.
The riding days we had were hot and long and pretty grueling, so it just felt really good to know we were going to get on the boats and be floating down the river, going with the flow for the next 5 days.
to actually look down and see fish. It was just something that's so foreign growing up on the East Coast and seeing trout come out of a river that are feet long. And these are trout that haven't been introduced, you know, by a fishery. These are trout that just exist up there.
Just had this dream of going to a place where the fish are really healthy and really big. Not used to people fishing for them all the time.
National parks became these bastions of wilderness, and by definition, they were places without people. Well, we don't have wilderness in Canada as a people. We have wild countries where caribou may outnumber people, but they're neighborhoods nevertheless, where man, woman, and nature have come to terms with each other, and those terms involve the luxury of open space.
So the sacred Headwaters is wild, but it's not empty. The Tahltan people have called this place home for thousands of years, and the sacred Headwaters wouldn't still be wild without the incredible effort the Tahltan people have made to fight for their homeland.
Our grandpa used that country for thousands of years, and we're trying to protect it.
The Tahltan story is not ours to tell, but as visitors in their home, we couldn't help it but feel an immense sense of gratitude for the work they have done to protect this place.
We're at the confluence of the Tahltan and the Spatsizi River, and I've been looking at this point on a map for over a year now, dreaming of being in this place, so it feels pretty amazing to finally get here and have my feet on the ground. We're over halfway on the trip, so that's good. We're not gonna run out of food. Now we're gonna float out another 150 kilometers on the Tahltan. Coffee, hot cocoa, rain, cold weather. These are the things that we experience.
Is that a haiku?
It's been overcast and rainy for the past 3-4 days, but today is exceptionally cold. And we have a big storm coming in tomorrow. We expect a lot of rain, so we stopped, we started a fire just to try to warm up a little bit before we keep going.
The river definitely has a different character than it has the last couple of days. It's cruising now, we're hitting more rapids, and it's a big river.
We gotta go!
That was a really sketchy moment just now. We were floating down the river and we saw a grizzly bear on the far bank, so we pulled up across it at a safe distance to get a shot, and then it got in the water and started swimming pretty quickly at us. So we got in our boats and started trying to paddle downstream away from the bear. Eventually the bear kind of pulled off, but it wasn't clear for a few moments who was going to be faster, us paddling or the grizzly, so definitely got the heart going a little bit. We'd completed the expedition, made it back to the Cassiar Highway, and before we headed home, we wanted to get up above Red Chris Mine and see what it looked like.
This controversial mine went into production just a few years ago, right outside the sacred Headwaters. It's terrifying to imagine what a disaster like Mount Polley would look like if Imperial Metals fails again here.
And as outsiders, we struggle to figure out where our voices fit into this story. But in reality, we all share a little bit of the responsibility for these places because we all use the resources that come out of these mines.
We should make it very clear in terms of cross-boundary issues that whatever is coming out of Red Chris, if there is a disaster, will flow right through the lake chain, right into the Iskut, right into Stikine, and right across the Alaskan border to Wrangell, Alaska.
There are a number of other mines being developed in the area that could also devastate Alaskan communities and fisheries.
Our trip to the sacred Headwaters was incredibly inspiring, but the stories of these places don't wrap themselves up into neat little packages.
This is the whole issue of mines. It's not mines or no mines. It's how many mines, in what places, at what cost to the environment, and critically for whose benefit.
These places just won't remain wild if the outside world doesn't start paying attention to local voices and making hard choices about the landscapes we leave for future generations.
It still is a vast country. It's still a wild country that can absorb multitudes. And the mine will come and go, but the land will still be there.